Hello everyone, this video today is about virus escape from Wuhan laboratory. Liability falls on the American National Standards Institute-ANSI. And we're going to show, without a shadow of a doubt, we have a very special guest here. We have Mr. Joe Batia, the CEO. Actually, he's the outgoing CEO. As of December 2024, he's going to be leaving, and rightfully so, because this guy is no leader. And we're going to show you this right now. I think it's very important. Last month, almost a month and a half ago, we were down in Washington, D.C. at the Senate subcommittee. We got up and we were corroborating what Sam Salihpour, the whistleblower for the Boeing 777-787, were talking about. We've got documents, detrimental documents, that our news media will not let out because Boeing gave up supplier auditing for over 22 years. Boeing was made an FAA regulator in 2009. That means they did not have to tell, and don't let anybody tell you anything different, they do not have to tell the FAA any changes within the products that they manufactured, like the M.KHAN system or the design that Sam Salihpour brought to the forefront with the 777-787. They didn't have to tell it. They are a regulator from the FAA. The worst thing, though, ladies and gentlemen, is that Boeing was paying the salary of these designates at Boeing of FAA, and who would they have allegiance to first? Of course, the Boeing management, and then they may tell the FAA. In 2013, I gave a speech at the American Society for Quality. I have to go back, and this may be a long video, but here it is. Mr. Dave Levy, a Region 3 director of the American Society for Quality, was there. And he was there to actually discredit me, but he could not. In fact, he gave us the attaboy that ANSI, ANAB had no problem with what we were doing. In fact, they support us. You can read that, stop the video. Let me just also say this. At that time in 2013, the American Society for Quality and the American National Standards Institute owned the American National Accrediting Board 50%. In 2016, Mr. Randy Doty, at one time he was the vice president of ANAB, chairman of the IAF, and he also sat on the IAF tax report 990. He had complete control. He invited us to join either the IAF or ANAB or both, but we refused. The reason why we refused is because in 2015, you'll see this very shortly, he handed over leadership of the International Accreditation Forum, incorporated in Delaware, which is a repository for national and international accreditation bodies. And also the IF is a sister organization of the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation in Australia. ANSI, ANAB are underwriters for those organizations. On the International Standards Organization website, it states, choosing a certification body. Accreditation is not compulsory, and non-accreditation does not necessarily mean that it is not reputable, but it does provide independent confirmation of competence. Well, can we say that? Because Boeing sits on ANSI ANAB's board, okay, and they sit on the board that can grant, suspend, and withdraw certification. You have Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson that sit on ANSI's board that skip quality processes and standards. You have Lockheed Martin, after 801 ships, guess what? They're still producing them with, with rejections, or as David Calhoun doesn't know, the CEO of Boeing, an escape. It's not an escape, it's a rejection. So let me ask you a question. Does it show an independence, confirmation of competence? Absolutely not. If you're ANSI ANAB accredited, just pay your bill and that's it. Pay to play. ANSI is a private, not-for-profit, non-governmental corporation that has federal agencies and corporations on board. Also, you have this factor here. You have Randy that handed over leadership in 2015. Randy Doty, who handed over leadership at that time, as I told you, he was vice president of ANAB, chairman of the IAF and the IAF tax firm. He handed over leadership of the IAF to this communist Chinese national, Zhao Jinwu, who is mandated by his country of origin to take your data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. Okay, we're going to get into that. You're going to see him in Wuhan, China pretty soon, issuing a laboratory cert. You have ANSI and ANAB. ANSI took over complete control over ANAB in 2018, and you have just a sample of federal agencies and corporations. Here's Randy. Randy explains this. I'm not going to read it to you, but he says an IAF, MRA, and MLA, which is a multi-regional agreement and multilateral agreement organization, are equivalent in accreditation to ANAB. That means, or ANSI ANAB, that means anything that happens within the system or product itself, the ANSI ANAB are responsible. There are 10 different registrars in China that can issue an ANSI ANAB accredited certification. ANSI is the founder of the International Accreditation Form. So they are an underwriter as well, ANSI ANAB, for the IF, so they are responsible for any failures within the system. The IF, as I said, is a sister organization to ILAC. This proves without a shadow of a doubt that ANSI ANAB are underwriters for the IF and ILAC. Here is a government contract, and you can see that down there. It says ANAB is an underwriter for the International Accreditation Form. Isn't that a tender moment? Here is Zhao Jinwu standing in the laboratory issuing a laboratory certification in 2017. In 2017, this came out in a Chinese technical magazine where it says it's the second, it says upcoming event, second China-US workshop on the challenges of emerging infections, laboratory safety, and global health security. This was from May 17th to 19th, 2017. And the very first item of business right over here is gain of function, where Mr. Fauci was asked by Rand Paul about gain of function, and Fauci said, I don't know, and Fauci's from NIH. You have Miss Pamela Sale here, who is the vice president of ANAB, the chairman of the IF, in about 2017, was asked in a deposition in Texas about laboratory certification. And I'm not going to read it to you. You can stop the video. It said, from one laboratory to another, there are variances. She confessed to the release of the COVID virus. By her saying this information over there, here it is. One of the issues is that there is no commonly agreed upon set of standards at forensic labs. I'm going to add these two: phlebotomy labs and bio-level 4 labs like Wuhan, China. Around the world and around the country have to follow. Instead, there are informal guidelines that labs choose to follow or not. So basically, when you see this guy, he's collecting a paycheck. But I will say this. In 2018, a contingency came over to Wuhan, China, and it'll be down below in the description, that they asked the scientists there at Wuhan, China, how everything was going, and the scientists said, we need more technicians. We need more technicians. So he basically handed a certificate into a laboratory that was not prepared in 2017. You call that good? And remember, the China National Accreditation Services is identical to ANSI ANAB accreditation, okay? Here goes a good one. Austin's crime lab, and this is why she was brought to task. Pamela Say, Austin's crime lab failure points to a national crisis. As disturbing as these revelations are, the Austin lab is not alone. Similar scandals have occurred in many laboratories. You can stop the video and read it here. Also, this is another one. Major evidence that calls into question the competence of ANAB is the 18 months and more during which quality auditors from ANAB and internal auditors from the Department of Forensic Science, which is run by the FBI, missed non-compliances of such magnitude as it warranted accreditation, warranted accreditation suspension. Here are many more laboratory issues, and here it is. A majority of issues happened in accredited labs. You have Pfizer that sits on ANSI's board. Pfizer skipped quality processes and standards. Pfizer's newest vaccine plan is persistent with the issues of quality and a history of recalls. Isn't that nice? And they were jabbing you with that. Johnson & Johnson, same thing, but actually this is not 60 million that were recalled. It was 75 million, and a batch of COVID vaccine failed quality checks. Isn't that nice? Usually, as I was dealing in medical, the way they find out it's a problem is when it goes out into the marketplace. You also have the FDA on board. You have the CDC on board. You also have, there you go, Fauci, there he is. You also have the National Institute of Health. And the final thing I'm going to show you is this. the actual CDC document put out in May of 2019. Remember I told you about how the scientists were complaining and crying to the American specialists that went over there? And this is what it says on page 3. The safety and function of the Bio-Level 4 laboratory rely not only on the containment facility and biosafety management systems, but on also highly qualified and experienced staff. They are the first line of defense, and they didn't have it. My telephone number is 203-556-1493 or Daryl, D-A-R-Y-L-T-Q-R-S @yahoo.com. Virus escape from Wuhan laboratory liability falls on the American National Standards Institute, and you can see that right there.